Welcome and thank you for joining our Pirkei Shiur Le'ilu Nishmat Harav Avraham Chaim ben Eliezer Yaakov Zecher Tzadik Livracha and Goldie Miriam but Avraham Chaim Zichrona Livracha. May they just heat on high on behalf of all of us. Over to you.
Thanks, Chaim. Good evening, hello, and welcome to a new term in this Yeshiva Al Kivroi. And once again, I start the term by thanking my sister, the Chashuva Rabbanit, Kaya, and her husband, Rabbi David, for hosting this Shir Torah Yeshiva Al Kivroi to honor the legacy, the life, memory, the values of Avinu, Morenu, Rabbeinu. It's a special term, as I heard Dad say so many times at the beginning of this term, that it's the term that ushers in the Yamim Noraim. It's already Elul, it's already in the air. Especially this week, Baruch Hashem, we passed Tisha B'Av, passed the Ben HaMetzarim, and we look forward, Be'ezrat Hashem, to Shabbos Nachamu. It's Menachem Av, according to some, the beginning of Av is a whole new month. It's a month of comfort, it's a month of Simcha, and Be'ezrat Hashem, may it usher in a period of health and security and nechamas for our communities and for all Klal Yisrael, Be'ezrat Hashem. Just to share a very short anecdote that somebody, a dear friend of the family, sent about my dad, and to me it's a lovely one. I really like it. It's outstanding. And that is that at one point, a friend of the family's, someone very committed to my dad, to my mom, and to the community. And the person said to my dad many years ago already, said, Rabbi Tanzer, it seems a pity that there's so much competition moving into the area. It used to be just the Glen Hazel and Yeshiva, and now, there's a whole host of movements and operations and stuff, and maybe they shouldn't all have moved into the area. The person reports that my dad instantly replied, the memorable reply. It's a different Mishnah. We're not up to that Mishnah yet, but I thought I'd quote it now anyway. And he said, it says in the Mishnah in Avos, Marbe Torah, Marbe Chaim. If you increase Torah, any increase in Torah, B'ezrat Hashem, is an increase in life, in well-being. He said, let's not start off with that. Avraham, the more, the better for all of us. It's not a competition, and even if it's a bit of a competition, it's a healthy competition. As the expression has it, when the tide rises, all the boats go up. It's good for everyone. Marbe Torah, Marbe Chaim. He said, we don't want to start up with that wonderful principle. Our Mishnah, beginning of Perek Sheni, Perek Beis, Mishnah Beis, is also, I feel it's a wonderful tribute to Dad, Abba Mori, because the Mishnah talks about the concept of Torah im derech eretz, which we'll discuss it, but as a general rule, to me, derech eretz it's not limited to just parnasa. We'll discuss it. Derech eretz means a sense of normalcy. And Dad was really one of the truly normal people that one ever meets. He was just so normal. In other words, normal is not simple. Dad used to point out, normal and average are not the same. If we say, for example, how many arms does the average person have? So ostensibly say the average person has 2 arms. But we point out that it's not entirely true, because sometimes nebuch, sadly, a person might not have 2 arms, might only have 1. And occasionally, rarely, a person might not have any. So you'd have to say that the average is only 1.9 or 1.8 arms. That's the average. The normal person, however, is to have 2 full arms, B'ezrat Hashem. Siyata Dishmaya. Normal is not to be average. It's not to take a mean common denominator. Normal means to understand your God-given talents, your koiches, your needs, and to find a way to articulate and express them all in a healthy, wholesome way. So everything is governed of Torah, but it's all your healthy needs are expressed in a normal way. It's a koach. It's a power of normalcy. That's how Dad was. No artifice, never is. He wasn't trying to put on, he wasn't playing a game for anyone. No, too much of this, too many creases that way. No. Just put together normal. It's a wonderful tribute. It's a tribute that Rabbi Yashiv, the God of the outdoors, recently in the last few years passed away. He said that about Rav Moshe Feinstein. A normaler, everything about him, normal. And let's discuss our Mishnah as a tribute in the Ilu Nishmas. Mishnah says as follows: Rabban Gamliel, the Noish of Rabbi Yehuda Hanossi. This Mishnah is Rabban Gamliel, the son of Rabbi Yehuda Hanossi. Interestingly enough, he goes down in history as the last of the Tanoim, the last Tana. His father, Rabbi Yehuda Hanossi, as we know, redacted the Mishnayos. He's the Bala Mishnah, but he also quoted his son many times. Rabban Gamliel, his son, the Nosh Rabbi Yehuda Hanossi. What is the last of the Tanoim, last of the great personalities, the Torah giants, who comprised the body of the Mishnah, immortal work of the Mishnah. So what's his parting shot going to be? What's his message? It's fascinating to think. What did he want to say as the ending of a most magnificent era of Torah Sheba'al Peh? Because after all the Sfarim till this day, the Gemara, the Bavli, the Yerushalmi, Rishonim, the Achronim, all of it is really crystallizing everything that was locked up in those Mishnayos. As easy as they are to read, they have so much locked in them. There is no Torah scholarship to this day that isn't really an exposition of the holy words locked up in the Mishnah, the Heilige Torah. So wonderful to have this Yeshiva Al Kivroi to study Torah in his memory. And Rabbi Gamliel obviously spoke about Torah. His message was Torah. His brief was Torah. It's the brief of the Jewish people. It's our mandate. Yafe Talmud Torah im derech eretz. But he added something. He said Torah in its most beautiful form, its beauty. What's the Yafe, the Yipui? Yafe means beauty. It means strength. It means in its most wonderful form of Talmud Torah is when it's im derech eretz, together with this concept called derech eretz. We'll discuss what derech eretz means. Everyone has an opinion. Everyone has a feel. What's derech eretz? Who knows? Aaron says anything wrong to you, that's not derech eretz. So, shouldn't say things that are wrong. Derech eretz, it's broad and it's deep. But let's leave it for now as Torah needs derech eretz. Sheyagia shneim mishkachas avon. The person toils in Torah and derech eretz, it causes sin to be forgotten. We have to discuss that. V'chol Torah she'ein ima malacha. Any Torah that doesn't have with it now malacha, it's a shift from derech eretz to malacha. Sefer b'teila, gereres avon. Such a Torah will cease in the end, non-viable, it's not sustainable. V'gereres avon. Not only that, the Torah is not sustainable. It drags along with it problems. Oh, so let's go back to the beginning. Yofe Torah im derech eretz. Torah is wonderful when it is with derech eretz. Torah is wonderful as it is. Torah is the life of our nation. Torah is the most potent and powerful way that a person connects and can commune and be dovvik with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You can't grasp Hashem. learn his Torah, something tremendous happens. Closer than the Hag. Hashem's Torah, and he and his Torah are inseparable, become part of your nefesh, your whole guf. It raises a person. If we knew what was going on each time we considered a Torah thought, we would walk away as different people. Just that we don't know. We don't notice what's happening. David HaMelech knew what was happening. He studied Torah. He was at one with himself. We don't know. We don't know even what's happening. But Yafeh Talmud Torah, the study of Torah, he said, is wonderful. Not only is it the only way to connect to Hashem in the most powerful way, it's also Torah's Chaim. It's a Torah of this world also. It's a Torah of eternality. Hashem and his Torah inseparable. It's a Torah of this world. It's a Torah that allows you to live in this world without being dragged down to the level of the behemoth. Chas v'shalom. Only Torah allows you to remain attached to Hashem, even in this world. It's a tremendous chiddush. Torah is the lifeblood of our people. So naturally, he spoke to Talmud Torah. He said, Yafeh Torah. But it has to be im derech eretz. It has to be together with something called derech eretz. Many of them, of Hashem, explain it as meaning not what we call derech eretz, rather panosa. Literally, it means a way of going through the land, the world. Or in Latin, I believe the expression is modus vivendi. It's your way of moving through this world. At one level, it means panosa, simply derech eretz. You got to survive. Yafeh Talmud Torah in derech eretz. Torah is wonderful. Talmud Torah is wonderful. But you might think that it's so wonderful that a person should cast all caution to the wind, ignore any thoughts of income, panosa, responsibility, and say, no, I'm going to sit in this room and learn forever. So, Kamashmanan, that's not the way. Our Torah is not a Torah that you have to run away to the caves for. Our Torah is a Torah's Chaim. It's a Torah that allows you to engage and embrace life. It can be a Gadol B'Torah where you are, as you are. You keep your mind in the right direction. So that's the first rule. Yafeh Torah im derech eretz means it has to be sustainable. If you got a goose that lays the golden eggs, don't kill it, feed it. You got to tend to the goose. Don't just grab the eggs. So you're right. You want Talmud Torah, and that's the heart and the soul of our people. But you have to make sure that it's sustainable. Make sure, first rule, make sure that you can learn tomorrow. Make sure that you can learn the next day. Make sure that it's practical, that it works. Our Torah is not a Torah of, you don't have to do anything weird. Be responsible and still learn as much as you're allowed to, as much as you can. Some Mefarshim point out, Yafeh Torah im derech eretz, it doesn't even have to be the same person. It could be that this person needs to learn all day. He has that kind of spirit that he never has enough of learning. And he's a great learner, and he's achieving things for the learning world that are incomparable. And the other fellow is very good at business. He's very good at profession. And it could be that Yafeh Torah im derech eretz means get together. Klal Yisrael is made up. It's a big ship, Klal Yisrael. Jewish people is a wonderful big ship. There's an engine room. There's a boiler room. There's a dining room. There's room for everybody. But we're all driving the same ship. So get together. Yafeh Torah im derech eretz. The ideal of Torah, the most profound form of Torah, it's made to be practical. It works. Torah is a Torah of Chaim in this world. It has to work. And it will breathe life into your world. So that's the first pshat. Some say that indeed, Yafeh Torah im derech eretz means that you have to work yourself, and you should never ever take charity to learn. As the Rambam points out, but Rav Feinstein already said that in our generation we're so distracted. We can understand so little that even if we learn all day, we can't achieve the levels of the previous Torah. So in our generation, Baruch Hashem, there's a wonderful system called Kolelim, And that's really a fulfillment of this. Yafet Torah im derech eretz. You have people who are working hard, and in their Bzchus, they are allowing people who are really good at learning and know how to learn to produce great learning. That's how Klal Yisrael is meant to work. Yafet Torah im derech eretz. They are partners in this great enterprise, and they all have the Bzchus of Torah. That's the first mahalach, the first gang in the sugya of Yafet Torah im derech eretz. It means simply parnosa, but that's not what it means. Torah im derech eretz does not just mean sustainable. It also means normal. It's a Torah that's normal. Some people think, some parts of the world, if you want to be spiritual, you have to leave life and run off to a desert, to a cave, and there you can commune with the Borei Olam. You can be alone with your spirit, alone with your neshama. And our Mishnah says, Nein, Yafet Torah im derech eretz, be a normal, fully functional human being with a family. Have the noise of blessed children and grandchildren around you all the time. Don't have to run away. You just have to focus. Where you are, Yafet Torah im derech eretz. Torah needs this derech eretz. Torah is a normal Torah. The optimal way of understanding Hashem's Torah is through being a fully normal human being. How could Rav Feinstein paskin halachos without understanding fully human nature, human relations? How can a Rebbe be a Rebbe without understanding people? You can't run away. Our Torah is a Torah's Chaim. You can become a giant, you can be a giant living in this world, engaging in this world. So our Mishnah teaches the best for Torah is to be normal with a family, with all the responsibilities. Even though it's true, in times of history, there were periods where people were forced to leave their homes to go learn. In Babel, they used to go to learn in Eretz Yisrael, but that was considered the exception. That was considered a need of the Shah, tzorech of the Shah. But as a rule, normal. Can't teach other people if you're not fully engaged as a person. Dad once had a yechidus with Rav Eliashiv, and Rav Eliashiv said to him, learning and teaching go hand in hand. You don't learn by ignoring others. You learn by exposing yourself to others, by teaching, by responding to others, by hearing the questions that are going on out there. That's how you do good research. And he used to say often, in the name of his Rosh Hashiva of Elia Meir Bloch, you think you're going to lose time by teaching others. It's taking away from your learning? No, Adarabba. The hour that you give those people in your shir is going to come back to you. And let's say you taught 20 people, it will be the equivalent of 20 hours for your own learning, because Torah is siyata dishmaya. Siyata dishmaya, it's not just brain work. Torah is not just an intellectual. And that's the way Hashem wants a person to learn, through being normal. And therefore you'll have more siyata dishmaya. All your family obligations, you take the time off and you do that, won't hurt anyone. So this is a great rule of Rama Gamliel, the last of the Tanoim, who after all they breathed Torah, the whole world was Torah, the whole life was Torah. They were the heart of the Torah for the millennia. Nevertheless, he said, Torah im derech eretz. Normal Torah. Normal Torah. You need character to learn Torah. That's Torah im derech eretz. That's the second mahalach in Torah. You don't have to run away from responsibilities. Opposite. Torah requires you to be fully engaged. And this was a great principle of Dad in Chinuch. He raised us to be normal. He raised us at every stage of your life. You act normal, be fully human then. And as you move on, you'll go to yeshiva, then you'll be normal in the yeshiva. Next stage, be normal then. By him, it was a very, very important fundamental of being a Ben Torah is gauge yourself as normal. It's the best way to raise children. It's the best way to be normal. Don't play games. The third way, Yafet Torah im derech eretz, is proper social conduct, which means moral and ethical behavior. What we call derech eretz today. In other words, there's a culture out there in the world, in the Ummah Ha'olam, called the intellectuals. Intellectuals. They understand everything. They categorize everything. But when it comes to their own behavior, their own personal family lives, their own personal engagement with people, as rotten to the core as could possibly be. But they're intellectuals. They publish Sfarim telling you how to behave. Torah is not a Torah of intellectuals. Our culture of learning is not a culture of intellectuals. By us, there they have huge brains and questionable morality. We've never found Gedolei HaTorah, our Torah giants, our Torah leaders, who weren't equally leaders in character, refinement, in good sky, in goodness. Torah has a form of a personality. She runs away from people who are uncouth, who are arrogant, who are caustic. They may get the words right. They'll be able to tell you the words of many Gemaras even. They may even get the basic arithmetic of Torah right, but they'll never be talking to the heart of Torah, to the spirit of Torah. The greater the Talmid Chacham, the greater his respect for Torah and for good midas. And it has to be a focus. Yafer Torah im derech eretz, just like you focus 10, 12 hours a day on your learning, equally focus on your character, because it's not something that ever happens by itself. And even with your Torah, got no guarantee about your character unless you make an effort. Dad used to quote the Stipler, who, when one of his children came to announce the engagement of one of the Stipler's grandchildren, the Stipler said, "Is he a mensch?" Or, sorry, it was before the engagement. They were meeting. And the Stipler said, "Is he a mensch?" Because the son had told him, he's such a scholar, he's a Talmid Chacham, he's the best in the yeshiva, he's the brightest. And the Stipler said, "But is he a mensch?" So eventually the person said, but I've told you, he's a wonderful Talmid Chacham, he's an outstanding Ben Torah. The Stipler used to say, "Oh, but a wife is not a stender. She's going to answer back. And unless he's a mensch, there's going to be a lot of trouble. So I'm not asking you about his learning. I heard that. You already told me how good his learning is. Oh, but is he a mensch? Is he a mensch?" And this is the third mahalach. What is Torah im derech eretz? Torah is not an intellectual pursuit. That was among Gamliel. The end of the Mishnaic period, putting it all together. Personality, character. You can't have Torah without the character. It just doesn't go. Has never, will never. It's not an accident that Moshe Rabbeinu was at once the person who brought down the Torah from Shamayim, the greatest, if you want, Talmid Chacham, together with Rabbi Akiva, and each of them equally the nicest people, the most good people that you ever met. She'egia Shneihem Mishkachas Avon, says the Mishnah. So you have these three mahalchim of Yafer Torah im derech eretz, this most important principle. Torah above all, but Torah needs, in its most wonderful form, its potency, needs derech eretz. Mishnah continues to say, "Sheyagias sheneihem mashkachas ovin." When a person toils in both Torah and derech eretz, it's not just that it will be sustainable according to that pshat. It's not just good that you'll be able to learn Torah with a noble personality. There's something else. Most people are not 100% cerebral. We need practical outlets, whether it's engaging with people socially. Some people it's engaging with their hands. Some people it's engaging in other forms, other talents that they have. If a person doesn't engage his personality in a normal way, he's not yogeya in all of these. He's left with frustrations. He's left with outlets that are not being met. He doesn't have outlets, without even realizing why. And therefore the Mishnah says, the person needs to, Yegias Shneihem, by toiling in both of them, your Torah, which is going to uplift you and keep you attached to Hashem. Together with your derech eretz, the Torah is meant to be a Torah Chaim. It's meant to take your whole experience of Olam Hazeh and bring it out in the most positive, healthy, normal way. And together, only together with these two, whatever the two are, as we've discussed, mashkachas avoin. Does a person have a healthy, clear mind? Is he a settled mind? Mashkachas avon, another pshat, and I'm going to conclude, and that is free time. Ironically, we live in a culture where we're trying to free up as much time as possible. Started with a microwave, and then everyone knows life got quicker and quicker. We're freeing up more and more time. never been busier. Truth is, free time is a hazard. It's a huge problem. If a person's got free time and he doesn't know how to fill it in a healthy, positive way, which takes huge maturity and inspiration, well, then you get the problems. In our country, they had to ban alcohol. They had to ban alcohol for COVID because comes the weekend, people they're not busy at work. They're not stressed out by work. Chaos. It's mayhem. They had to ban alcohol. Weeks, months. Free time is a problem. You need to know how to use your free time. So our Mishnah says, when you're not learning, you can't have nothing to do. You have to have this thing called derech eretz. You have to meet all your needs. Life has to be constant engagement, not busyness. Can't be too busy, because if you're too busy, you're not going to have time to think. But constant, positive engagement, minute by minute. Paro said, people are talking of freedom. That means they're not working hard enough. Because if they're working, they wouldn't have time for this. When a person has free time, if he knows how to use it, it's the most wonderful gift in the world. It will draw him closer to Hashem. He'll have more time to think, to ponder, to consider, to learn, to digest. If he doesn't, it's a problem. The Shagas Arya, they say, was on his deathbed. He was about 90, I believe. And he was a Boki, he knew Kol HaTorah Kula. And on the side of his bed, he had a whole pile of Gemaras. And there was a young man who was administering to him, handing him one Gemara after the next, another sefer, another sefer, another sefer. The young man realized that the Rav was on his last hours, and he slipped in. He didn't know how to tell the Rav, maybe it's time to do tshuva, to do vidui. But he didn't have the chutzpah to tell the sage, the Shagas Arya, contemporary of the Gro, and the Gro held him to be the greatest in the world in his knowledge of Shas and Poskim. He didn't know how to tell him, Rebbe, maybe vidui, maybe tshuva is appropriate. So he slipped in a sefer called Ma'avar Yabok, a sefer that deals with all the halachas of passing from one world to the other. And the Shagas Arya reportedly took one look at the sefer and gave it back to him. He said, I haven't had time to even think of Aveda, never mind time to do Avedas. Give me another Masechta. And there's a great wisdom in this, what our mission is telling us, that Torah requires a person to be as positively engaged as much as he can. And even when it's free time, should never be empty time. Empty time is hazardous, drives people mad. Busy time. If you're not busy with Parnasa, be busy with the Chesed. If you're not busy with the Chesed, you should be busy thinking in a relaxed way, in a calm way, without tension, without frenetics, but never empty time. When that keeps the mind in a healthy place. And Torah requires melacha, the last phrase. Torah requires melacha. To me, it means Torah requires to be digested with professionalism. Don't just read it. Make something of it. As you would at work. Take a piece of Torah, make a presentation out of it. Make sure that you have it clear. You've grasped all the topics. I'm going to conclude for now over here. Thank you. Have a Shavua Tov.
Thank you very much, Dov. Have a good week. See you guys.
Okay.
See you.